ordinary soil lies secrets soaked in blood. These are not peaceful graves. They are the forgotten tombs of history's most sadistic murderers. From hidden prison yards to unmarked cemeteries, we'll uncover where these monsters were laid to rest, and the chilling stories their graves still whisper. 1. Ted Bundy. The name Ted Bundy still chills the world. During the 1970s, he preyed on young women across several U.S. states, luring them with his charm before brutally assaulting and murdering them. Bundy eventually confessed to more than 30 killings, though investigators believe the true number was higher. His crimes, marked by deception, manipulation, and horrific brutality, turned him into one of America's most notorious predators. In 1989, after years of appeals and media frenzy, Bundy was executed in the electric chair at Florida State Prison. Crowds of people gathered outside the prison, cheering as word spread that the infamous killer had finally met his end. But even in death, Bundy's story carried a disturbing final twist. In his last will, Bundy requested that his body be cremated and his ashes scattered in the Cascade Mountains of Washington State, a place of great significance. This was the very wilderness where Bundy had hunted victims, burying their remains in secluded wooded areas. Authorities granted his request, and his ashes were scattered at a confidential spot within the Cascades. For many, this act felt like Bundy's final insult, a killer binding his legacy to the same land where he committed his atrocities. Today, hikers may unknowingly walk the same terrain, never realizing that both his victims and Bundy himself rest beneath the shadows of those mountains. 2. Ed Gein. Long before the world knew names like Dahmer, whose horrific crime murdered at
I'm just skipping through if it's someone I don't know.
The same resting ground, first attraction, way at his head, later recovered. Nothing more robbed other his grave. Two names strike fear and fascinate decades after his death. 3. Charles Manson. Few names strike fear and fascination quite like Charles Manson. As the leader of the infamous Manson family, he orchestrated a string of gruesome murders in 1969, including the killing of actress Sharon Tate. Though Manson himself didn't wield the knife, his power of manipulation and his cult's brutal obedience made him one of the most notorious figures of the 2000s. Multiple people claimed the months as the son, Jason Freeman, California. Undisclosed location. Full of mourners remains unknown or a target of raid, and evil. 4. H. Holmes. Long during the late his case in robbers buried 10 feet deep in Holy Cross century. His descent. His grave lies encased once again, assured even in death that his body would. 5. Andre Chikatilo, the butcher of regions of the murders, scenes of February 19. Prison. Strict states executed criminals, becoming shrines, or, conversely, targets of desecration. Chikatilo's family pleaded to know where he was buried. His existence was erased in death with known only to the state, denying him the legacy he may have. Craved. 6. Myra Hindley, Moore's murderer. In the eyes of the British. 2000. Fear was cremated. The event was, though never disturbed the possibility that her final victim's family, even in death, of crimes that, in the mid-1980s, California lived in fear of a man with it. Could face even then his remains body quietly announcement likely no memorial known by grim nicknames such as the Gray Man and the Werewolf. 8. Albert Fish, known by grim nickname on in 1930 convicted. There was no graves were not state property. In cruelty. West conjures images of Under and his horror, and it as the house. The rest of he had to avoid the his ashes have never. victims into the wind. Monster of Cromwell, Wayne Gacy, the killer clown. Elusive in death as he was manipulative in life. 10. John Wayne Gacy, the killer clown. Behind the painted smile and colorful costume lurked one of America's most prolific serial killers. John Wayne Gacy, known as the Killer Clown, entertained children at parties and charitable events by day, while by night he lured young men to his Chicago area home where he tortured, raped, and murdered them. Between 1968 and 1978, Gacy killed at least 33 people, burying most of them beneath his house in a crawl space that reeked of death. In 1994, after years on death row, Gacy was finally executed by lethal injection at Stateville Correctional Center in Illinois. But even in death, his story took a bizarre scientific turn. Before his cremation, doctors removed Gacy's brain for research, hoping to understand what made this monster tick. Scientists studied it for abnormalities, searching for clues in the mind of a killer who had terrorized Chicago for a decade. After the examination yielded no conclusive answers, Gacy's body was cremated. His family, much like Fred West's, kept the location of his final resting place a closely guarded secret. No public ceremony was held, no grave marker exists, and his ashes were scattered in an undisclosed location. The irony is haunting. Gacy, who denied his victims proper burials by stuffing them into his crawl space, now rests in complete anonymity. Somewhere, unknown and unmarked, the ashes of the killer clown lie scattered. His final performance ending not with applause, but with the silent, eternal obscurity he inflicted on so many others. 11. Dennis Nilsen. Dennis Nilsen, often called 7, he's 12 victims behind bars. Prison full of revulsion, forward to claim procedure, public. Physical memorial, society, names like Dr. Satan. During World War II, getting in Idiot, elaborate. 46. The evidence showed he was motivated by greed and cruelty. In 1946, he was executed by government wanted his memory erased completely. Instead of being given a accounts non-existent. Authorities ensured dignity. Between 1975 and 1980, Peter Sutcliffe was empty of dignity, ensured was bare, erased, killing his crottage out of frame. Did not only Marcel Petty remains like his crimes have final rest. Just as he denied his victims in a proper grave. Peter Sutcliffe to life in or wider public. The date and his ashes rural stone to anonymity. Society denied Sutcliffe life. Ian Brady, he abducted, refusal to reveal the location. His with more. Record disposed of with corpse with total secret. Officials said no shrine. 15. John Reginald Christie. Women. Yes, because Timothy Times. Did not. In keeping with were not entered a working prison. Empty of identity, the Milwaukee cannibal. Jeffrey Dahmer's name has become synonymous with depravity. Between 1978 and 1991, Dahmer murdered 17 men and boys, committing acts of dismemberment, necrophilia, and even cannibalism. His crimes were so gruesome that they shocked even seasoned investigators, and his trial drew international attention. In 1994, Dahmer's life ended violently when a fellow inmate beat him to death in a Wisconsin prison. But his death was only the beginning of another disturbing controversy. What should be done with his remains? His divorced parents fought bitterly over the decision. His mother wanted his brain preserved for study, hoping science might uncover a biological cause for his horrific behavior. His father, however, wanted nothing of the sort. He demanded that Dahmer's remains be cremated, believing it was the only way to close the chapter. After months of debate, a judge ruled in favor of cremation. In 1995, Dahmer's body was reduced to ashes, and in an unusual resolution, the remains were split evenly between his mother and father. What they did with their portions was never made public. Today, there is no grave, no marker, and no place for visitors. Just as Dahmer's crimes left families with holes that can never be filled, his death left only ashes divided between two grieving parents. An end as fractured as his life had been. 17. Clifford Olson. In the early his arrest in 19... accepting money, unrepentant, even in death. Authorities acted was cremated. Detention. His end... Shipman was a trusted British doctor who became one of the administering lethal to his real life. He was found hanging in his cell at HM Prison Wait. He opened defended his innocence, wanted him to that could be conspiracy prevailed, and closely hundreds of places for his name. Most infamous female serial 19, leaving no grave, no marker, and no place for his name to be honored. 19. Aileen Wuornos. Aileen Wuornos remains one of the most infamous female serial killers in modern history. Between 1989 and 1990, while working as a prostitute in Florida, she murdered 7 men. Wuornos claimed the killings were in self-defense, saying her victims had assaulted or attempted to assault her. But the brutality of her crimes and her erratic behavior during trial drew global attention. Convicted and sentenced to death, Wuornos spent over a decade on death. 2. Want to be buried? Ashes honored her final wishes. This location was played. In death, the German city of Dusseldorf was